folks. Magellan here to welcome you all to Season 10 of Chat's television podcast, Studio 60 on the SunsetChatz. If you're joining our show for the first time this season, we're excited to have you. If you like what you hear today, please explore our backlog of other cult classic TV shows that we've covered over the last few years. You just might discover us talking about your favorite show, or you might discover your next favorite show. A quick note before we get started. We recorded this season last year, spread out over the early months of quarantine, which, with the way that the world moves today, means that some of our talk about current events or COVID might be somewhat dated as a result. We try to make the season come across as timeless as possible, but I thought that was worth mentioning. Also, some exciting things have crested the horizon for us since that time, so please stick around until the very end of the show for some additional plugs and announcements. Anyway, without further ado,
live from Studio 60 on the SunsetChatz, it's Thursday evening.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chat's a Television Podcast, Season
10,
Studio 60 on the SunsetChatz. My name is Alan, and I'm joined by the very model of a modern major podcast host. It's Magellan.
I have information, Libsyn, RSS, Apple, Pocket Casts.
My chat son himself is here, finally back from the dead.
My waveform's looking spiky, so I need to do some noise reduction. His waveform's looking spiky, so he needs to do some noise reduction. Right? I mean,
Yeah,
come
right,
on. We've all been there.
right. I've said it before and I'll say it again, but nothing is funnier than telling a good joke and then going, right?
Very topical for what we're about to discuss.
That's so true.
Explaining
And
your jokes?
I have a theory, but we'll get there.
Oh,
Okay.
boy.
Ooh, I love theories.
Our theory crafter on this podcast is the miracle device that can count forward and backward from 7. It's 6, everyone.
I've got every
All right.
number count covered. I just, listen, except for 7. I can't do 7. But everything else is mine.
Is your name 6 because you're counting down to up to 7 or down from 7 for something?
My name is 6 because that's how many years I have left to live.
I guess in a way, then.
But it also means I keep pushing the goalpost, which is lucky.
Yeah, that's true.
The Grim Reaper keeps trying to get me. I'm like, check the name. I still got 6 years left.
Yeah,
it's like, damn.
Contractual.
It's a good trick.
Lift the goalpost. Good. Clear it. Haha, that's a reference to the show that we're talking about, which is Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. A show that the three of us discussed the pilot of back on Pilot Chats on our Patreon feed, which is patreon.com/chatspod, just to get that out of the way. We watched the pilot of the show. Magellan and I also watched The Newsroom going on 3 years ago from this recording, so 2017.
3 or more, yeah, depending on
we watched The Newsroom and didn't love it, but had a lot to say and think about it. So we're going to be watching all of Studio 60, 2 episodes a week, as we do on Chats. And these episodes will release at some point in the future, so you'll get to hear them and think about it and watch it, and it's great. The three of us this week rewatched episode 1, Pilot, which was written by Aaron Sorkin, directed by Thomas Schlamme, and it originally aired September 18th, 2006. Megan, what happened in Pilot?
The executive producer of a late-night sketch comedy show sparks a media frenzy when he has an on-air meltdown during a live broadcast. The newly appointed network president, Jordan McDeere, has to scramble to make things right by hiring back 2 former prized employees to become the new executive producers of her network's flagship program. In doing so, she appoints 2 former members of the team, writer Matt Albee and former sketch producer, now director, Danny Tripp, who had left the show years before on terms that were not amicable. Meanwhile, Albee and ex-girlfriend Harriet Hayes come to terms with having to work on the show together very soon after their breakup. What did we think? Hey, we watched it a second time. Did anybody have some new thinks about Pilot? You get any different thinks or same thinks, or what's with our thinks, huh?
So one thing, this is just like, of course, right? This is a very obvious observation, but it is a very enlightening thing to be like, okay, so Aaron Sorkin wants to explain how bad it is that the media is treating its audience this way. What is the worst comparison they could make? Got it. Sex work.
Is that a comment in this? Wait, where is that?
He says that we've become whores. That's part of the speech.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, okay.
That
All right.
is there a way for us to find that speech? Because I'd love for us to just do a dramatic little reading of it, right? Let's see. Studio 6. This can't be Googleable. Studio 60 Wes speech. There's no way Google's going to give me this. Okay.
I've got it. Are you ready?
Yeah. Could you give it to? Can we like trade stanzas?
Sure. Let me pass you a link so you can. This is not very well formatted, so trading off is going to be tricky. It's just a block of text.
Yeah, just whenever the spirit moves us. We can do a popcorn style where you call on someone to read.
Okay. You know what? And I'm going to do it based on the next sentence because I think there are points where certain people's talents are really gonna shine.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you direct this one, Six. You take it away.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is not going to be a very good show tonight. And I think you should change the channel. Change the channel. Go on. Right now. Or better yet, turn off the TV. Okay? No, I know it seems like this is supposed to be funny, but tomorrow you're going to find out that it wasn't. And by that time, all have been fired. Alan.
No, this is not a sketch. This show used to be cutting-edge political and social satire, but it's gotten lobotomized by a candy-ass broadcast network hell-bent on doing nothing that might challenge their audience. We're about to do a sketch that you've seen already about 500 times. Yeah, no one's gonna confuse George Bush with George Plimpton. Yeah, we get it. We're all being lobotomized by this country's most influential industry that's just throwing in the towel on any endeavor to do anything that doesn't include the courting of 12-year-old boys.
Magellan.
And not even the smart 12-year-olds, the stupid ones, the idiots. Which there are plenty, thanks in no small measure to this network. So why don't you just change the channel? Turn off your TVs. Do it right now. Go ahead. A struggle between art and commerce. Well, there's always been a struggle between art and commerce. And now I'm telling you, art is getting its ass kicked. And it's making us mean. And it's making us B-word. It's making us cheap punks. That's not
Alan.
who we are.
People are having contests to see how much they can be like Donald Trump. We're eating worms for money. Who wants to screw my sister? Guys are getting killed in a war that's got theme music and a logo? That remote in your hand is a crack pipe. Oh yeah, every once in a while we pretend to be appalled. Pornographers. It's not even good pornography. They're just this side of snuff films. And friends, that's what's next, because that's all that's left.
Magellan, take it home.
And the two things that make them scared gutless are the FCC and every psycho-religious cult that gets positively horny at the very mention of a boycott. These are the people they're afraid of. This prissy, feckless, off-the-charts, greed-filled whorehouse of a network. And you're watching this thoroughly unpatriotic mother... And then they cut him off.
Go to VTR now.
Go to
Please.
VTR!
Oh, it's funny that throughout that whole you found this on WikiQuote, and throughout that whole thing, the only name or thing that's hyperlinked is George Plimpton, and that's very helpful to me because I had no idea who he was, and I still don't.
He's a sports writer.
Sports. Okay, yeah. That wouldn't have been a good sketch.
Aaron did some research when he was doing Sports Night. That's what that means.
Oh man, that speech is really something else, huh?
It is worth noting there are several points where, because it cuts away, there are gaps in the speech. So if it seems like there's no reason to connect two thoughts together, there's probably something we missed. Or also it's just interestingly written at some points.
Interestingly written is good. That's a good way to describe it.
My thing with this speech, and we talked about this to a certain extent the first time we watched this, is just like we don't ever see anybody reacting to this, and it's this really boilerplate, like almost like preteen conspiracy theory kind of screed. I don't know, that or like the first couple of years of television existing sort of thing. It just like there's not really much here that feels that new. At least not to the extent that the show should be like dramatic music. Here's what we have to say about TV. We're eating worms. I mean, that's a good line. We're eating worms for money. That's pretty good.
We literally are eating worms for money.
I really just want that. That seems like it should be taken out of context. It seems like it should be in a Radiohead song.
Yeah.
Eating worms for money.
Ooh, Tom York, I didn't know you were here.
Hello, I'm depression.
What's up, Tommy?
I don't do a good Tom York.
Shlamy?
No, but I mean, it's not a great impression, but it's good enough to be on Studio 60.
Yeah. As we know, they don't do impressions on Studio 60.
God, no. Not anymore, that is. Thanks to Matt, Albie, and Danny Tripp.
They're here to save us.
If I say their names enough, I'll remember them because those are the most generic boy names. Matt and Danny are the saviors of this TV show, and with the sage advice of Wes, which gets him fired, they are brought on to fix Studio 60, and they are also just they're Aaron Sorkin and Tommy Shlamy, and I can't get over it. I'm never gonna get over it. I looked that up while we were researching this on the second viewing of the show, and I don't know. I'm just like, come on, really, Aaron? Like, you're gonna make the really likable guy you're gonna make that like directorial choice, buddy. I hate it. I hate that about this.
It's so
show.
naked what he's doing.
Y'all, what if Chandler was mad?
What if Chandler was on drugs and mad?
Yeah.
Well, he's only on drugs for the first episode.
True, and then he's just mad.
I'm so like this show has all of the things that it needs to get me to be like, yeah, but I'll watch it. Like the fact that it stars Matthew Perry and Bradley Whitford, it could be about anything, and I'd be like, yeah, but I will watch it. The fact that it's about a sketch TV show, it's like, yeah, but gotta watch it. They're so good, and they're like the only two people who really do Sorkin lines in a way where it feels like a person talks that way, as opposed to everybody else who it just feels like they're reading their lines off of a menu.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, because like I feel like for Matthew Perry, it's like he is the kind of person who, at least through his roles, I don't know the man myself, but he has conveyed this persona of being like so calculatingly sarcastic that it really works for him. And then and
he wasn't great at it at first on Friends, but he had like a decade of television to train him in how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Bradley Whitford, God bless Bradley Whitford, is so good at coming across as such a fucking drama queen.
Yeah, true.
That sells it because it's just like, oh no, this is what your brain is like, is you really are this melodramatic. Okay.
That's a good point.
Again, in my research while watching this episode, I stumbled upon a video that I'm going to link to the two of you to watch later, but it's like basically a version of Cinema Sins, but for TV. It's like TV Sins or some crap like that. And it hits like basically all the points that we do. It's weird watching a Sins video because I hate those, but like when it hits most of the same negatives that I have about a show, but the like person literally takes off Sins because they're like, yeah, but this part's really good, you guys. Like this dialogue is like fantastic. And their like big takeaway is that the actress playing Jordan is above and beyond everyone else. And I'm like, I don't understand what show you watched.
From the pilot alone, they say.
Yes,
that?
it's like just a discussion of the pilot. Yeah,
that's really interesting.
People I mean, like all the comments, because the show is most accessible right now on YouTube because no one cares about the rights. But all the comments, like it's like watching newsroom clips where everyone's like, man, this show predicted Trump. This show is so brilliant. Like, I just don't think the average, it's sort of like, and this is like a crass comparison, but like it's the way that like the electorate works, right? In America, where like we find ourselves in a bubble of like, yeah, we all agree that like Aaron Sorkin sucks, right? But like, no, there's still like a ton of people who will eat up everything he watches and take it as gospel and be like, Amanda Peet is one of the best actresses.
I eat up a lot of it too. And there's Jordan McDeere stuff that I find fun,
Yeah.
Like this time around, I was even more amused by her, like, I don't know where my office is stuff.
That was charming.
But I don't know. Like it still is fundamentally frustrating when the first thing that's said about her is, hey, so I know you're a lady, but I read your resume and I'm going to accept you as qualified after, studying your past much more than I would any man. And I don't know. I'd love to ask a woman, like a real life woman or a group of women or all women in the world, what they think about this character. Like, is this cool that she is the head of the network and she's just like, yeah, I'm fucking doing it, making my choices, standing up to Jack Birdface guy? That
she's not like
good.
other girls, Magellan.
She's not like other girls.
But that is fundamentally the problem, right? so I don't know, man.
There's a moment, I actually think it's in the second episode, but it's like between her and somebody else where they're like, no, I'm sorry, it's between Harry and someone else. But what I'm getting at is that like Sorkin has this thing where he's like, okay, guys, I know how to write women. I read about the Bechdel test in a book once. Instead of talking about men and men's problems, they're going to talk about and then he just shuts down and they're like, I like you. You're other girl who is friend with me and I like you because
I wish I had your body.
It's like, Sorkin, you gotta put the cuffs on, bud. Go to jail, man. You can't just give it and just let any woman write with you. Like, have someone consult your scripts, man. Like, please.
I mean,
and
I think Amanda
2006.
Peet is right. I think Amanda Peet's doing a fine job. Sorry, but the Jordan character is like, I don't know. I have misgivings. I think it's a character that her character as an idea is cool. And then a lot of the ways that he executes that character are problematic. Sorry, go ahead, Alan.
No, that was the main gist of it. And I have like more stuff that we can get to throughout the discussion of this first episode, of just like lines and moments that I caught that I didn't think about the first time. With like the whole VHS thing where the network executives go into 3-6 Mafia's room and like they don't know what size of VHS to put into the tape and they're like, no, get me the 3.5 inch, blah blah blah. Is very dated, but also reminds me that like Sorkin is very like deeply into analog technology. All the like romanticized shots on the newsroom are like, no, but look at the cameras, look at the lighting setup. You're not looking, but like, oh, it's so beautiful how these things are filmed and made by hand, but beautifully. He's afraid of computers, which I've always known.
Yep.
And the only good people who work behind the scenes are the ones that break the rules, because he's also he's a bad boy. He's a Hollywood bad boy.
Right.
I'm so curious where the guy in the control room goes as a character, because he sticks around. They keep him on for the show. If he ever gets to have any funny moments. Him and Simon are my two like CTR characters where I'm like, I'm sure you guys don't get like an episode, obviously, but I'm curious if anything good ever comes of these characters. Like,
it's silly to me that they refer to Harriet and I don't know the other two main characters' names as the big three. It's like, what? They're not the big three. It makes me curious.
Actors? Yeah.
It makes me curious in the world of Studio 60 how famous these people are. I guess we get the sense that Harriet is like pretty famous, but it's unclear.
Yeah. I did have a thought which struck me.
Is this your theory, or is your theory coming later?
My theory is episode 2. I can't bust out my theory yet.
All right. Cool.
So Jordan is very much the type of character that Sorkin likes to write, right?
Yeah.
We've got like Ainsley Hayes from West Wing. Well, we've got like 7 characters from West Wing. He just couldn't stop himself on West Wing. You got a bunch of those characters on Newsroom. Anyway, my theory is that this is the middle-aged equivalent of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Ooh.
Oh, for sure, you're right.
Ooh.
Yep. The like upstart, hot, young professional lady who,
but she's like quirky and sassy.
And he's like in his room imagining that she like fucks everybody or whatever, and like that's cool, and I get to write about it because that's feminism. But it's really just like my fantasy lady. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I need to find an interview at some point where Sorkin says that he's a feminist. That would send me to another dimension.
I'm sure he has said that.
Man, just it makes me sad, but then also like the saving grace of the show is that it got canceled. Like, and it got canceled for interesting network reasons too. You know, it wasn't just because, I don't know exactly what it was, but it wasn't entirely because like, hey, we realized this show was wrong-headed and stupid and not going anywhere and meaningful. It was also like, yeah, well, 30 Rock's going on, and also your ratings aren't as good, and also nobody like cares about your serious take on sketch comedy shows and all that stuff. But like, so it's not like, hey, I hate this show, but oh wait, Sorkin's like the richest man in the world. Like, he's not. He's definitely rich and definitely doing fine for himself, but like, he's not the household name that I thought he was in like 2010.
That's interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
And putting himself in as Matt Albee works with like to mixed results, I think, in this episode. Like all the drug stuff we talked ad infinitum about in our pilot chats, but like, it is really strange. The whole like Bradley Whitford's character is the one who actually has like the drug problem, and Matt Albee is supposed to be Sorkin, but like Sorkin has his own issues, and like the way that he's like, no, but this guy's right. Like, he's a goofball and he's like funny and lovable, but he's right is what matters at the end of the day. Just feels it's so like conceited.
And then there's also the additional layer of the fact that Matthew Perry, who's playing Matt Albee, the one who doesn't have drug problems, but Matthew Perry, the real-life actor who does have drug problems. Yeah. So,
yeah, it's just layers of crap in that like duo that I otherwise really like. Like, we talked, about how they're really charming, and they like deliver their performances really well, and they actually seem like they like each other, which is surprisingly not like ubiquitous on this show. That should be about people working together. Mm-hmm. They're the rare like duo that likes each other.
The thing that I was thinking about with them, in watching this and in watching the second episode and returning to the pilot, is that, and we can compare to the newsroom here as well, that like the call to action of this show doesn't feel entirely clear to me. Because in the newsroom, you have a group of characters who are like, okay, the news is broken and we're going to fix the news. And the way that we're going to fix the news is we're going to make the news genuinely informative. So like, we are going to get to the stories first. We're going to tell the stories in the right way. We're not going to bring on talking heads who have crazy opinions just for the sake of doing that. They have like clear ideas coming out of the inciting event of the show about how they're going to do the news good. And also you have the character of Will McAvoy, who like realizes that he was doing the news bad and he's got to do something about it. Whereas in Studio 60, I mean, we read the speech that's like, TV's bad. And then the solution is like, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the guys who do the TV good. How do they do the TV good? Because they're better at it. But there's nothing about like their ethos or what they're trying to say with their art, Like, I don't have a sense of like, what are these guys trying to say, except that like Christians are crazy.
Well, and I think that's going to be an early focus that they're going to move away from. I don't know that for a fact, but it just seems like that's an arc, and then you move on. They gotta, offend other people who think they're safe. But I think it's also like in Newsroom, it's like, okay, so Jeff had the professional failure of being, kind of a limp, like flavorless commentator for so long, and he's trying to make up for that professional failure. Danny and Matt have personal failures, because Danny's a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, and then Matt is a dickhead.
Just a mean man. Yeah, Sorkin and his like they really love writing male characters who are like irredeemable shitheads, but like you gotta love him, right? Like, come on, guys.
Yeah,
he deserves love and happiness, right? And it's like, it's really frustrating because I know you always have to consider like what is the writer trying to convey about its characters and what is it conveying about the world. And like Magellan's saying, it doesn't seem like they have much to say about sketch television and sketch comedy, but they do have a lot to say about like men who want to fix things. It's like we should let them.
The thing,
let them.
And the thing that they're saying is that those guys are hot and they can do hard leg lifts. It's like, okay. And they're high functioning drug addicts too.
Barf, 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 die.
Yeah, but it's just like, I don't know. It's just frustrating to me, I guess, that they're because also like Will McAvoy had personal problems too. Like he was also a shithead, and it doesn't seem like there's really it doesn't seem like the show really interacts with like that West speech that was supposed to be the thesis of the show, you know? Mm-hmm. Like if the thesis of the newsroom is like we're so divided nowadays and like we can be great like we used to be, and you know, have other great men like the Cronkites of the world come back. Like that's a broken, you know, I mean, we talked about the sort of coward centrism of Aaron Sorkin to death, but that is an ideology. Whereas, you know, this show doesn't seem to really have an ideology about like what comedy can or should be, except just that it like shouldn't be limited. And that doesn't feel particularly inspiring.
Well, it does do some foreshadowing in that speech there, because it does bring up the psycho-religious cults that love boycotts, which is very much an interest of our second episode.
True.
Truly prophetic.
Before we munch into that one, I have just a couple
How did he know that was going to be in the next thing that he
It's
wrote?
amazing.
It's incredible. He's a visionary, really. I have just some brief stray notes about this first one before we put it behind us for the rest of our damn lives. I think it's funny that, and we talked about this, I think, in the pilot, but instead of live from New York, it's Saturday Night Live. It's Friday night in Hollywood. Like just the attempt to keep the cadence of that really well written intro from Don Pardo and company, and be like, but it's like, who's watching sketch comedy on a Friday evening? And also, what does it being in LA have to do with anything other than everyone is like really energetic all the time and probably on drugs, right?
Yeah.
It's an
that sounds
odd
like
choice.
enough to me. I'm from LA. That checks out.
It all checks out. Really hyper and on drugs, sure.
I mean, I am both of those things.
That's valid.
My drugs are legal, but you know,
right?
That's just because they legalized it.
Yeah, baby, come on, baby.
And we talked. This was in the speech at the beginning, but just people having contests to see how much they can be like Donald Trump made me weep tears. It will never not be weird when people reference him in things.
Yeah.
What if we did chats on The Apprentice? Is what I wrote here.
Oh boy.
We shouldn't actually, but if we want to just be really sad and watch Trump before anything, but regardless, the other thing
when Trump dies of the coronavirus, we can do that to memorialize.
Perfect. That'll be our eulogy. It's just dumping all over The Apprentice. Yeah. The last line of the episode being the whole like Matt turns to Danny and is like, well, we live here, and they go to work, is A, very Sorkin, and B, very like unaware of how like, or maybe unaware. I think that some fans of the show would say it is aware of like how work obsessed all of these characters are. And like Magellan said, we never see viewers of the show. We never see them outside of working on the show. It's just like everything needs to happen in the orbit of this dumb weekly comedy show.
Yeah. We're always like very much in the tower of whatever, you know, whatever group of wizards it is that we're looking at. So in the newsroom, we were like in the newsroom, and we very rarely saw people outside of that. I mean, I guess, you know, there's like, I'm on the campaign trail, or I'm in Africa, or whatever, but by
still
and
in the
large,
orbit. It's still in the orbit of it.
It's the newsroom, and by and large for Studio 60, we're in the studio, right? And in the West Wing, we're in the West Wing. Oh my God, we've doing it on purpose.
And in Sports Night, we're in the sports.
We're in the sports.
They're inside the sports.
just related to that, the thing that I did not comment on at all when we piloted this was the whole, I think it's Danny or one of them who's talking about like his contract and the whole thing about his completion bond, and like he has to be clean on drugs for a certain amount of time before he gets insurance back is not touched upon much at all. That seems like a big deal, right? Not for the plot of the show, but like for this character.
I don't understand what you mean.
He's talking about how like he can't get his health insurance unless he's sober for a certain amount of time.
No, it's not his health insurance. It's insurance. Like you need a special kind of insurance for a movie production.
Oh,
he can't get that. He can't get like he can't. You know, like it's like how like so. Here's super topical. Definitely not going to be completely irrelevant by the time this comes out. The Electronics Entertainment Expo, E3, was recently canceled. They're going to get a lot of their money back because they had insurance for that event.
True.
He's talking about insurance for the filming of the work, where if there was an accident on the set, or if there was somebody passed away, they'd have insurance for the filming of the film.
Interesting. I didn't understand that. Okay.
Yeah.
Because they talk about how like he's basically putting his like film production on hold to do all of this stuff. It was a Nikola Tesla movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is like, oh my god,
clown shoes.
So, like, if you're gonna add a detail, if you're gonna say what the movie was about, first of all, why? Second of all, why is it that?
Because he's so smart. You need to understand how smart he was.
Oh my goodness gracious.
He'd never write about Edison.
No, that guy's a fucker. No.
Yeah, that's true.
You were gonna say, was there a second point to that, Magellan? Oh no, you're just saying first of all, like as a goof.
What did I say first of all, too? I don't remember.
Memory's fake. But what I was going to get at also is that, like, there's an episode of Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, which I'm currently working through, where there's, like, a really powerful film that, like, when people watch it, they stay inside of the place where they watched it for the rest of their lives, and they never leave because it's so beautiful and powerful, and they just let it loop. And that only works because they don't show the film. As soon as you show an instant of something that's like that, you ruin it. And Studio 60 immediately commits and like repeatedly commits the sin of like, I guess show don't tell or like tell don't show almost, where it's like this sketch is so important and amazing, and then as we get into the second episode, it's like, oh, that was your cold open that was like gonna fix the show.
Right. Yeah, it's
tell and show.
Yes, it's tell and show, exactly.
Right, and you're not supposed to do that because like you could just do that sketch and maybe your viewers would be like ha 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 ha. But Sorkin has it's almost like he doesn't really trust his ideas, or he doesn't trust the audience to get why they're so good. So, and we're kind of going into second episode talk, so I guess we can start that soon.
It's called the segue.
But he has to spend the whole second episode explaining to you why his idea is brilliant before you get to see it. And then you see it and you're like, okay.
Oh.
I guess this is time for the theory.
Okay,
Continue with your second episode theory 6.
First, let's second episode summary. So the second episode we watched this week was episode 2, Cold Open. It was written by Aaron Sorkin, directed by Tommy Schlamme. It was released September 25th, 2006. In this episode, Matt and Danny have 5 days to put together their first show, which is receiving enormous media attention, and Harriet tries her best to work with Matt. In the meantime, Jordan puts her new job on the line by facing down pressure due to the controversial sketch amidst criticism from sponsors and affiliates scared of alienating Christians. Also, staff writers Ricky and Ron, who were catalysts for Matt and Danny's initial departure, expressed their dismay at being made to work for Matt. 6. What is your theory?
Okay.
Theory time.
Am 75% German, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. What is it they say? What is it they say about Germans in comedy?
That Germans can't do it.
Right. We tend to explain the joke, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. We explain the joke and thus we kill the joke. It's like insurance on the movie. That is Aaron's insurance policy for Studio 60. Aaron can't tell these jokes. And so Aaron explains the joke before the joke. And I was like, well, of course it's not funny. I already explained it. That's the entire show.
You're saying that he purposefully explains because then he can use that as an excuse for why you didn't laugh?
Yes.
Wow.
Your brain's big right now. Your brain's really big.
I'm on another level.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fucking good.
I thought you were gonna be like a gigantic super brain theory. Aaron Sorkin is secretly German. Like whoa.
I don't tend to galaxy brain race politics. That's a little fucked.
I was gonna be like, just because we don't have listener feedback doesn't mean we can't still get canceled.
That's good.
Yeah. So
I have a theory also.
Oh yeah, what's your theory, Megan?
A motif of this episode that I actually really enjoyed. So this episode I watched twice for fun. The first time I watched it,
brainworms,
I was like, oh, wow, I actually, I'm into it. And then I just decided I wanted to watch it again right before we recorded this. And I just did that because we just decided to,
Shut the fuck up.
It was like,
no, you're allowed. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to poo-poo you, but
it was like the same feeling as like when you listen to the NSYNC song "God Must Have Spent a Little More Time on You," and you're like, yeah, actually this song is kind of a bop, and then you listen to it again. It's that, Anyway, so that's something I did earlier this week as well.
Okay.
This is my theory. There's a motif in this episode that I think is really good. And if anyone were to write an actually good drama about creating a sketch comedy show, this is like definitely something that you should include, which is that in Wes's old office that Matt makes his office, there's a countdown clock that somehow is able to count down until the time that the next episode of Studio 60 begins. And Matt accidentally turns it on, and then he's like, well, how does it know? And Danny says, don't imbue it with special powers. And my theory is that it does have special powers, and that it's actually in some way cursed. And through its sort of dark magic, it drove Wes insane or possessed him or something. And that this was all part of Aaron Sorkin's 7-year plan for Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. And we never got it, but
we never got the whole thing. Yeah, and then it was going to be like him, Matt Albee died, and then he's talking to himself through the clock.
Yeah, it's going to be an apocalypse box.
Exactly, the classic apocalypse box situation.
Yeah.
I like it. That clock is obviously really dumb, and it's a classic example of like sounds really cool in a script.
I think it's not dumb. I genuinely think it's a good piece.
Well, I was gonna loop around and say it sounds maybe a little dumb, but like it actually kind of works. It's fine. It's like I talk about how in the first episode they don't seem to understand that all they do is live for work, and this one's like no, they know. They literally, the second their job is done for the week, the timer starts again. Do you understand how fucked that is? And it's like, yeah, I think they do. I think the show and the characters understand that is breaking them.
I mean, but like, okay. So first of all, I have cracked the code on its secret power.
Okay.
It's called lithium.
Okay. That's how it works.
Second of all, I mean, like, I get it, and I do think, like, it's one of those things, they're on a pretty tight schedule, but, like, I mean, everybody has you could set that exact same calendar up for spring break, and be like, damn, we're back from spring break, the timer started again! Like, it doesn't mean anything.
But I do think it's a special kind of pressure to be someone who's trying to, like, create. And it really speaks to like how you can turn into like you were a Matt Albee and now you're one of these like dopey writers in the writer's room. All these dudes are pitching like Family Feud, but it's the Clintons and the Bushes, and they're like ha 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 ha. And the reason they're doing that is because you have to work at a breakneck fucking pace, and you just got to put out whatever you can put out. And I think that it's a really great, I don't know, foil or symbol or whatever for Matt's character, that he's trying to do good work, but just the way that this show is structured is so counter to making that a possibility. And so he's like constantly constantly haunted by like, oh, but it's not good enough, or like, oh, but there's next week, and there's no moment for him to rest.
I could see you using it like the way like Twin Peaks uses like the traffic lights, like just cutting back to shots of the clock to be like, this is how shitty things are right now.
6.
I could see that being effective. What?
Yeah.
Nothing. 6. Nothing at all. Nothing. 6 hasn't watched Twin Peaks, but 6 has listened to enough podcasts about Twin Peaks that 6 references it more than I.
Oh, okay. I was like, I didn't even know the traffic lights were a thing. And
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's what happens when you
totally.
only read the book report about a book and don't read the book. Is you're like, oh, T.J. Eichelberg
Yeah.
glasses. That's what The Great Gatsby is about, right?
Yeah. Right. That's funny.
There was a couple of moments where this episode felt kind of dated. I'm curious what y'all thought about these like the sort of like men in wig stuff. Obviously doesn't hold up super well. The joke about the guy wearing the wig, and also
Well,
like
the joke is that he looked like Jack White. I don't.
Yeah.
well, that's true. Yeah, and they make and all the musical guests being like people who are no longer in the public eye or are just like embarrassing that we all cared about them so much. Where he's like, what are we gonna get? Kanye West, Jack White, Stone Temple Pilots, and even the assistant has to be like, dude, Stone Temple Pilots broke up like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You don't know how culture works.
I do. I mean, I don't know. I do think I appreciated the Jack White poll just because that for them saying they're bad at doing like impressions.
Yeah.
Like that fake Jack White was like, yeah, no, he is a tool. So that actually was great.
Yeah.
That was actually a perfect
Yeah.
Jack White impression.
Yeah.
And then the other one was when Matt and Danny early in the episode are talking about the lady. I'm trying to remember the exact context of the line. We're talking about the Toluca Lake person with who loves Barbra Streisand. And she's complaining about them, and then he says, was she calling us Hollywood liberals or was she calling us gay? And he's like, it's a fine distinction. Like, why did you write that line? Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Am I
Yeah.
I do know what you're talking
before
about.
they're about to go out. But I think that is meant to skewer that. Like, I think Danny's being sarcastic about, like, oh, you know, conservative people like think that everyone in Hollywood is gay and they hate both of those things or something.
right? Liberals and,
I mean,
gays are all under the same.
Right. There's a bunch of like stuff. There's stuff like this, I think, in West Wing. Actually, there's a segment that I think is actually pretty effective in West Wing where there's a standoff between a conservative and the cast, and one of the conservatives refers to Bradley Whitford's characters as having a New York sense of humor, and he's like, I don't really understand what that means. And then he's like, he's talking about you being Jewish, and it gets really uncomfortable.
Ooh,
I think it's a very similar thing.
I see.
Is it sort of playing with the fact that conservatives like to use coded languages to be bigots?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I feel like there was just a decent amount of dunking on conservatives in this second episode, which I know Sorkin is a big fan of.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Even though he's basically one. Yeah.
Even though he's a skip and a hop away from just a full out right winger. And yeah, there's just what's the avenue with which y'all found to discuss this episode? Because I have a ton of notes for this one because it's my first time watching it. And I don't even know what like angle of this big chicken sandwich I want to tackle first.
So chock full of stuff. I mean, we can start where the episode starts and just talk about Jordan McDear some more.
Sure.
Because I'm still having a time figuring out what I think of that character exactly.
You're like, she's so smart, but she's so cute. What do I do?
My brain can't process these two feelings.
I think the line that really, really confused me was at the very beginning, like one of the first lines. There are these reporters who are like, Jordan, what is it like? Like, you're one of the top lady CEOs ever, so you're bringing a business mindset. Pretty cool, right? And Jordan McDear's like, well, you know, I think it doesn't have as much to do with man and woman as you might think. And it's just, I don't know. I find that interesting that Sorkin is using this female character to say like, hey, my gender doesn't matter. It's sort of almost like a colorblind approach to how to understand Jordan McDear as a gendered character. And I don't think that is like, I think he thinks of that moment as this is progressive or
like
this
unifying?
is like, yeah, this is unifying. This is a feminist thing. But I don't think it functions in that way.
No, I mean, like the thing that I have always like heard, and I have occasionally had the opportunity to be a voice of, because there are a few small ways in which I am a bit of a minority, is that like it's like, okay, like it's not that inherently one voice is better than another. It's not like because I'm a woman my voice is better, but it is important to have all sorts of perspectives represented, so that you get a better picture of the whole. And I don't buy a character like Jordan McDear, who she's supposed to be, being like, well, it's not really about being a woman. I think what she would say is something more like, well, I think that, like, it's good that we are able to have different perspectives here now.
Right.
Also, I know people, like, even in my current workplace, who are ostensibly the Jordan McDear, who are like, I'm a high-ranking woman who has to address the fact that people will not respect me. And the way that people handle it, at least in my experience, is like, you don't comment. You don't even make this comment about like it doesn't matter. You just don't, like, it's sort of like saying the whole like I'm not racist because of X. You just don't be racist. That's how you do it. That's how you succeed in like being a successful woman, is just be successful. And disregard the part where you're like, yeah, I know I'm a woman, but I'm also like as competent as all of you guys. And that's how it looks to me in the real world. I don't know. I always find her confusing, like her portrayal, because we're also supposed to be like she's really cool, but she's also like the pretty lady. And this is the same episode where two women talk about how like one of them wants her body and the other one wants her career, and it's like these are the only things that Sorkin knows how to write for women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I do want to talk about Harriet and what's the other actress's name?
The actress
Harriet?
Harriet? Janie?
The other, it's Harriet and Janie.
Oh,
yeah.
Jeannie, yeah.
Jeannie.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So, okay, here's my thing about the whole love triangle thing with Matt and Harriet and Jeannie is, out of all of it, all the scenes, the two-person scenes where they're working through this thing. So Matt Albee, so the plot is that, and it's set up in one of the first scenes. Danny Tripp sends Matt Albee home with Jeannie, who's one of the actors on Studio 60, mm-hmm. and we find out later that they've had this sort of on again, off again, like friends with benefits thing in the past. Mm-hmm. And Danny was like, I need to send you home with her because you were like totally coked out of your brain and you needed someone to take care of you. Yes. And so they have sex for like a whole weekend. Matt has recently broken up with Harriet and is just doing the nasty with someone she is going to literally be working with every single day. And understandably, she's like, hey, fuck you. And then she and Jeannie have some interactions that basically amount to like, hey girl, I had sex with Matt. Hey girl, that's totally cool. Like, do your thing, girl. High five.
Go get him, Tiger.
Go eat him up, Jeannie with the light brown hair, she says. And Jeannie, it almost feels like a real moment from the performer there where she laughs and says, eat him up. Like, what the fuck are you saying?
Why did you say that?
the only scene in this entire love triangle that feels real is, and it feels really real and really good, is when Harriet is talking to Matt about it, and she's like, hey, you had sex with someone. I have a very active imagination, Matt Albee, and now I have to think about this all the time. And I have to see you and her all the time, and that's just mean. What you've done is mean. And I think that feels so real because I think it really happened to Aaron Sorkin.
Oh, God.
I think that there definitely was a time in his life where he did that, and a woman said that to him, and he wrote it down, and now it's in the script. And then all the other parts where she like kind of forgives him later, or they're cool, and the part where she's talking to Jeannie is like bad because he's the one who's making it up.
Is it a good time to bring up the fact that as Matt Albee is Aaron Sorkin's stand-in, he deliberately has stated that Harriet Hayes is based on his ex-girlfriend?
Oh, God.
Bingo.
Is that true?
Yes, it's entirely true.
Oh my! You can't.
That's
you
a bingo.
You can't. No.
So do you think that then she watched this show and saw this interaction and it was like, oh great, now I'm remembering that moment. Awesome. Thanks, Aaron.
And it must be so frustrating to her because I'm sure there weren't like affectionate moments of like, just write me a great script, you genius writer boy, you. Get me an audience, you Einstein of a man. And
You king of your own industry.
She should hate his guts because he was an ass. Hate his guts and keep hating his guts. But it's so toothless, the conflict, because Sorkin can't live with his stand-in character being actually disliked. He can live with this sort of abstract, like, oh, everybody thinks Matt is like a little wacky. But living in the moments of like, you're a fucking selfish prick and you fucked someone who I like is my friend. Living with that, he's like, I don't want to spend too much time with the realities of this.
This is from the first episode, but it truly does like completely boil all the piss in my body when Harriet slaps Matt. Harriet slaps Matt and immediately goes, "Ooh, I'm sorry," and I'm like, I know. I'm sure if someone could write into this podcast that exists out of time, that they would write in and be like, Alan, that's the whole point, is that she's like a submissive kind of girl. Shut up. That's a bad thing to write for a person to finally take charge and be like, no, you suck and you did a bad thing and you're going to do it again probably. And like to hit this guy and then to apologize is bad. It's no good.
It's not good.
Harriet is a character I know in like the pilot I was like I really hope her character like goes cool places. I've already
I didn't give an evil cackle at the time, but now I feel comfortable doing so.
Yeah, I'm already
it sucks in the same way that oh my god, Newsroom,
Which
British
character? Mackenzie.
British news Mackenzie McHale. How could I forget Mackenzie McHale? It sucks in the same way that Mackenzie McHale sucked sometimes, which is that she only exists to be the person who reveres the Sorkin guy. And even when other people are like, I don't know, she can be there to be like, no, but he's a great man. Or like, no, but he's a genius or whatever. And so we're never going to get a complete Harriet Hayes character because she's always going to be that.
She always exists in relationship to him.
Yeah. But it's okay because when it comes time for the show to start, she gathers everyone together in prayer and is like, dear God, I bet Jesus was funny as hell.
I like that line a lot.
Really?
I loved that line.
Honey.
When she says Jesus must have been funny for so many people to listen to what he had to say, I thought that was a really good line.
Maybe taken like completely detached from everything.
Correct.
But as part of this episode and this 2-episode arc overall, where it's like, look, check it out. Like, not like other girls, not like other Christians. We're here criticizing Christians, but don't worry, we pray before every episode. Like, it's the most garbage thing.
Yeah, it doesn't work. All the like him trying to have there be like the conflict between Matt and Harriet about her Christianity and then link that to the broader conflict about like Christianity in the media. It's just totally, it's like, no, I don't care about this. And I wonder if in 2006 that felt like a bigger deal when we were still like having the culture wars on the same battlefield to a greater extent. Yeah. And now we just kind of don't interact with the other side in the same way. But yeah, it definitely it's dorky that there's so much like God stuff with Harriet Hayes. And also, oh my God, the fact that when they're in the club in the first one and one of the like background actors is like, oh, Harriet, what's wrong? You didn't pray before the episode this time? That it's just, that's stupid too.
It's so I am maybe not the one we should be asking about this. I know we have an actual Christian, at least one.
Hi.
On the podcast. I myself am not a Christian, and I would say that I have had damage done to my life by Christianity, and despite this, the way Christianity is treated by the show so far pisses me off. It's shitty.
I would argue. I would say that probably most either Christians or former Christians or whatever would watch this and be like, "Come on, like seriously." And you said one of your main characters on the show is a Christian. Like it's her like religion is entirely a gag, or like a side note, a footnote on her character.
Yeah, I think that I would have really bought into this when I was in high school, and I was thinking a lot about like my religious identity and purposely being an atheist. Behind my mom's back, kind of.
Sure.
But I just don't. When you're talking about like, let's consider a sketch comedy show in the context of the whole society, the fact that this central theme is like Christians and comedians just can't get along, except, hey, one of the comedians is a Christian. It just doesn't feel like that should be the main thrust of the show.
And it just is it's so clumsily written where it's like Harriet is, it's interesting to say that Christianity is a footnote for her character, because it is and it isn't. And it's so clumsy because Christianity doesn't come up for her as a character at all, except for when it does. And in those moments, it is 100% of her character.
Yeah, right.
Which is not how that works for anyone.
Yeah, I was struggling to find the words for that, but that's right. That it doesn't feel fully integrated into like who she is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sad that I have to keep being like, you know what did religion well is Babylon 5.
But it did.
But it really does. Like, it super gets it.
Yeah.
This is where they're like, you know, who's really mad about this sketch is Rapture Magazine, which like, just stop, guys.
Yeah, that's.
And they're being like, no, like you guys in your dumb atheist ivory towers don't understand, because actually Rapture Magazine has more subscribers than Vanity Fair. It's like,
well, Rapture Magazine, isn't that when all the people get on the spaceship? You think they'd be rooting for us?
Sorkin really can't hide his contempt for anything that he has contempt for, because
women,
there's that bit. There's Christianity and women. And then there's also the part where it's like, I'm reading from Betty's blog or whatever. And she spelled coffin wrong. And she's like a dumb old lady who lives with her cats in her pajamas. But everybody listens to her. And it's like, whoa, Sorkin, did somebody write a bad review on their blog? And like, this is the way that you take out your frustration?
She's got a freezer full of... I watched that scene like 5 times because my video... I had to keep looping it because I was at work. And it was like, she's got a freezer full of Jenny Craig and her 6 cats are here to comfort her. I'm like, shut the fuck up. You hate anyone who criticizes you. And
sexism is the way that he exercises his frustration, right? Like,
of course.
Why is it Jenny Craig? Exactly.
Yeah, why'd you do that? Why'd you say that?
Yeah.
Hey, Aaron?
Yeah.
And that's... There's another moment in this that kind of propels the rest of the plot of this episode, which is Danny pulling a Tony Stark saying, I am Iron Man, and being like, I tested positive for cocaine. Bye, mic drop.
I thought the same thing. I wonder if it's the same set or something.
It's a like a common like narrative device of like person makes a huge reveal at a press conference, and that changes the public perception of them. But it was a press conference where they were supposed to hide it, or the whole thing was that they weren't supposed to mention it. And doing the classic like career suicide move where it works. And I don't usually like to say like the way the Marvel movie did it is good, but where the Marvel movie does it right is like Tony Stark saying that does change his entire arc. Whereas this is like, all right, now the rest of the episode is us fixing this idiot's mistake. We just have to undo him not knowing how to shut up. Yeah, there's so much like it is in that Marvel movie. The other thing it does well is that's when the movie ends, and so we don't have to sit with that moment. Right. But then like the thing is that with this moment, like his explanation after the fact, when you know Jack Rudolph comes up to him and is like, "Yo, what was that?" He's like, "Well, like one, I'm a recovering drug addict. I'm not supposed to lie," which is like, I mean, I guess, but like you're on one right now, my guy. And then the other one is like, well, it was gonna come out anyway, and that's like the stupidest logic, which is like one, like you could have denied it. It could have come out later once the show was on its feet. It's like, well, ignored it. There was going to be a fire at this house at some point, so I figured I might as well start the fire while we're still building it. Like, what? What are you doing?
It's also like when you say it in front of a press conference of I tested positive for cocaine, people think, okay, so he's constantly doing cocaine, right? That's his thing.
Yes.
But his thing was that he was sober for like 11 years. And what he's done by sharing this fact is he's actually not told the truth. He's given people a deeply skewed perspective of the extent to which he uses cocaine.
And then gone on to like further normalize it and neuter it by having the end of the episode be like, and now we're just gonna like play it off like what a hilarious gag that our producer will be doing cocaine forever for the rest of his life. So there's no longer any accountability, and so now if there's a future news thing where it's like, oh, he got tested positive again, everyone would be like, oh, that Danny, what a joker.
I almost feel bad sometimes, and I don't know how much this is a show we're watching that's 14 years old now. I hope Aaron Sorkin knows how to has the resources to seek help with his own personal problems that aren't just I'm gonna make a funny joke about this in my TV show, because a lot of this really does just feel like you are being like, I don't need to get treated because we can make a goof about it. We'll do it a cold open and that's the joke, right, you guys? And it's like I want to see Danny get better. I want to see all these characters improve and be able to be functioning human beings, but we're just watching them spiral and having their show support them, which is really kind of depressing to me.
Something. Yeah, that's true. I want to go back for a second to the obsession that the show has with vilifying Christians. Because I was thinking about if there was a Studio 60 in 2020, which very fun that those are numbers that end in 0. I kind of think maybe not in 2020. Maybe if there was a Studio 60 in 20 at the same time the Newsroom was on.
Yeah.
Then the people that the Studio 60 writers would have hated wouldn't have been Christians. It would have been woke people.
Sure.
Right. Identity politics.
Yeah. I think that's what it would have been. And then we would have gotten, the sketch would have been crazy women or something. Or
crazy queers.
Yeah.
The crazy queers.
I mean, do you think that's why Sorkin isn't getting a show anymore? Why he hasn't had a new TV show?
He keeps trying to pitch the Studio 60 reboot. And he's like, no, this one's really going to take.
Yeah, it's like watching a really slow motion car crash. And again, I don't despise this episode. It's just really frustrating. But as soon as they talk about okay, we know we just got to come up with a good cold open, and then we came up with it, and you're like, please show it for the love of God. I can't wait to see it. And by the time we get there, I'm so tired of all of the dialogue and the yelling at people, and we see it, and it's just the most profound train wreck of all time. Not sure. I don't know. We'll get there.
That's just because he explained the joke.
If
he hadn't done that, it would have been really funny.
Well, they did the whole song. If they didn't do the whole song, then it would have been fine. If he didn't explain it exactly, if we just got to see it, then we'd be like, "Wow, this is so smart." I was also excited to see. I thought I was going to be excited because they said that Mark Wahlberg was going to be on the show that week, but we obviously didn't get Mark Wahlberg. This show was airing.
Isn't it weird?
3-6 Mafia.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird that SNL exists in the Studio 60 universe?
Yeah, they can't.
Extremely.
Every time they talked about I wouldn't do that to Lorne Michaels, I'm like, you can't. You can't, guys.
Well, and it's even the Lorne Michael line specifically is oh, I'd take his office, but I wouldn't take Wes's, our fictional character, who's way better. Guys.
Also, Lorne Michaels sucks, you guys. You know that, right? He's not a cool guy. It's funny too that the show doesn't really have the time to fit in all these celebrity cameos, because it was airing around the same time as Entourage, which I'm somewhat embarrassed to admit I watched a lot of the show Entourage, and that show entirely is this episode, Mark Wahlberg is here, you guys, check him out. He's doing bits, and it's Mark Wahlberg playing himself, So that's why I was anticipating that, and then I didn't see it, and I was like, oh, okay, they can actually just do a show without that. So that was kind of a plus in the end of the day. But as Majan was saying in the first half, the guys who are in universe, the Studio 60 actors, don't feel interesting at all.
No.
It's you're supposed to be there's a Kenan Thompson, and there's a Cecily Strong supposed to be on the show, and there's all these different characters, and it's just they're all background. Like the actual actors are not important to the like camera focus of the show.
Well, don't worry. Simon went to Yale.
We'll talk about Simon in just a moment. I do want to talk about the scene where Matt tells everybody that they need to start dressing professionally and then they're like, Matt, it's a writer's room. It's a writer's room. None of us are ever being seen at all. That's the whole thing about Hollywood is we don't get seen, so we're allowed to be in fucking sweatpants. And he's like, no, if you're coming to work, you have to get dressed up. And he became my dad in that moment, and he became Aaron Sorkin in that moment, and it really just blew my mind. You can't do that.
And then they have the scene afterwards where he goes back to his office and he's like, I mean, listen, I know, like, we're all having fun around here, but, like, I was right? And he's clearly talking to the audience and being like, listen.
Come on.
And he's also wearing an outfit where the only difference between his outfit and what they were wearing is that his shirt doesn't have stripes. Like, he's in, like, you know, slacks and an open button-up shirt. He's not in his suit anymore when he's like, yeah, the dress code really matters to me. It's like, dude, you are business cash out the ass right now. So don't even talk about it. There's also... an episode of... Yeah, go ahead.
There's an episode of The West Wing where Bradley Whitford's character spends the entire episode in oversized, used fishing uniform. Like, shut up. Shut up, Aaron.
It's also telling that Matt Albee looks across that writer's room, and what he sees is that they look like middle schoolers, and not that they are all
white men,
white guys. Not that they are all 100% white guys. Not a single person who's not a white guy. And was that a casting decision, or how did that happen?
That was one of those casting undecisions where if you pointed it out to Aaron, he'd be like, no, there were like 3 or 4 of the blacks in that room, right?
And you're like, Aaron, first of all,
Aaron. I'm really hoping that I'm holding out hope that there's a Studio 60 episode where they address it.
Well,
and they're like, wait a minute. Like maybe Simon's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, Simon is the only character of color who like gets like actual dialogue and has a personality, and even then, his most like potent scene in this episode is Matt coming up to him and being like, "Listen, hand on your shoulder, buddy. You deserve better than a Bill Cosby impression." Which, first of all, 2006. Oh boy.
Yeah.
But second of all, him being like, you're a hard worker. You're a hardworking man, and I'm giving you this better role. You get to do Weekend Update, or you get to do the news.
Danny's doing that.
Or Danny's doing that, excuse me. And it's like, this is a scene that's supposed to prop up Danny as like, he gets it. He's giving the black character something to do besides do the intros and all that and the voices. Yeah. Instead of just like making Simon his own character.
Yep, Simon's whole thing is like, please, Mr. White Man, don't fire me because I can't do the Bill Cosby voice. Please, Mr. White Man,
my
save
voice
me.
Hurts. Save me.
And then Danny says, I will save you. I'm the good white guy.
Oh my god, Aaron Sorkin. Yeah, so that's why again, in the pilot, when I was like, man, I hope Simon gets more to do. It's like, no, dude, I really don't. Like, just don't do this. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I had mentioned in my notes here that every single sin that this episode committed would be erased if we finally get to see crazy Christians. And we don't in this episode, at least. But we have a revelation of sorts because they're struggling to think of a cold open because things are falling apart. They've lost their musical guest. They have people who are sick. They've had people who, like, sketches aren't getting finished. They're like, the whole thing is falling apart. We need to start with a cold open. They have this like recurring image of the sticky notes board, which is an actual thing in most TV writing rooms, of like, here's all of the stuff that's going to be in an episode. And it's empty at the end of the week, and it's sort of like it's the same thing as the clock, where it's filled right before we air the episode. And they're like, we need a cold open. What are we going to do? What's funny? What's interesting? And then someone's like, what if we are, get this, you guys, what if we're self-deprecating? What if we made fun of ourselves? Isn't that brilliant? And someone's like, dude, write that down. What do you mean? And then I don't know how exactly they did the leaps and bounds to get to doing show tunes. Do y'all remember what the context of that was? Like, what led them to doing?
Someone said something about being a model citizen and has jumped to modern major general.
Yeah. And Matt Albee was like, you know who did the best frat humor ever? And Danny's like, I'm totally with you. It was Gilbert and Sullivan, bro. Yes. Remember when we would listen to them in Sigma Chi? Yes. We would fucking crank the Pirates of Penzance, my dude.
And the two of them. Shaw. Wow. Thank you, Six. It is LA.
Bro,
You're right.
You remember the freaking Mikado, dude? Oh, it's sick.
And they're like, okay, we'll do Modern Major Gentlemen, but we'll make fun of ourselves. Isn't that great, you guys? All right, we got a show. Now that we've come up with a cold open, I guess we have the whole show done. Which, that's the other funny thing, is they never think... Well, I mean, whatever. The show doesn't need to show all of that, but the only thing that seems to stress them out is, like, how are we going to do a cold open? The rest of it is, like, in the air still. As soon as they come out the cold open, they're like, all right, episode's done. Figured it out. Bingo bango.
Well, I mean, all they need to do is they need to have that first impression where you're like, oh shoot, they're back and they're serious. They're going to do a better job. And they can just go back to the same, like, garbage,
We just do Peripheral Vision Man for 90 minutes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I wrote in my notes also for the first episode, I really wonder what the guy who did that, like, 10-second animation of Peripheral Vision Man, I wonder what that animator is doing today. I hope he's okay.
Can I
tease you with something?
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
You have not seen the last of Peripheral Vision Man.
No!
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine being a viewer of Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, and you see this press conference where Jordan McDeere is like, tune in on Friday because we're going to save television. And then you flip on the TV, and it's like, we'll give you an intellectual reach around. Intellectual reach around. And you're like, okay, Linda, we're gonna watch Starsky and Hutch again today because this is not doing it for me.
The remake, though. The remake. We like the remake.
Yeah.
Owen Wilson's just so good. He's so lovable.
Not hitting the spot.
Linda, please. Linda, put the VHS in.
Yeah. Man. There were... Okay. Is it time to say the things we liked?
Yes, please.
Oh, what were we doing until now?
I was saying the things that I had fun with.
Okay.
But
fair
not
enough.
the things that I genuinely liked.
Okay.
I genuinely liked the Jesus was funny prayer.
Oh, yeah.
Again,
okay.
Again, taken out of context, I genuinely liked the interaction between Harriet and Matt, where she was like, hey, I got this laugh. Like, it is a cool moment of like, we're fighting and we hate each other, but like the art matters and our appreciation for each other's like insight matters. It sucks that it's totally centered around Matt being a comedy genius and her worshiping him. But it's a cool exchange where she says, hey, I got this laugh in the dress rehearsal and I didn't get it, or I got it in whatever thing and I didn't get it just now in the dress rehearsal. What did I do? And he's like, don't worry about it. It's one laugh. And she's like, what did I do? And he said, you asked for the laugh. And she said, what did I do with the other thing? And he said, you asked for the butter. It's like, that's pretty good. Pretty good
I wanted you to explain that. Can you debate me, bro? Can you? What's the gag? Is the thing he's saying there like by asking for the laugh? That's the least funny thing you can do. Like
like if you're performing if you're performing in such a way that you are like expecting something from the audience, and you're like showing them that you really want them to laugh, and you're trying too hard in the wrong way, then that's not going to be funny.
Oh,
but if you're like totally in the character and you just like play the character and what the character wants and are truthful to it, then that is going to be way funnier than you being like, look at me, I'm so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I thought that was good.
That's all. That's okay, and that's like well delivered and well done. Sure.
Yeah, I like the moment where they tell Danny that Jack White is sick, and he's like, yeah, do whatever we do, like send some flowers to the hospital or something. And then I think it's a nicely shot moment where you see his realization, then he's turning around and he's shouting down the stairs, and he's like, wait, Jack White? And Bradley Whitford sells it really well. And he's like, Jack White, White Stripes, we don't have a musical guest? No, okay, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes and he talks to Matt, and Matt's like, can the White Stripes play for 90 minutes? Because I have nothing else. And Danny's like, no, we don't have them. And he takes it down, and the board is empty. That's good. I mean, this show's good.
Listen,
what I'm saying.
okay, and then he says, it'll be empty in an hour and a half too. Like once they have a full board before it gets emptied out. I actually my thing I liked about this episode's also in that scene where Danny starts chewing out Matt because he keeps worrying about the clock and about the board and being like, you also just need to be alive for 5 minutes, just exist in the present and enjoy what you have right now, please. And that was the first moment of humanity out of any of these characters where I was like, oh my god, I agree with what someone's saying to someone else. They're giving advice that needs to be heard. What's going on? And then we just zoom right past it. But it's a good moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, then there was a lot more.
Wait, what did six? What did you like?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, 6 what did you like?
What would you like?
Come
on, what did you like?
I thought I liked Ron's hair. He had a shaved head, but so his lack of hair, but he looked good.
Yeah, he does look good.
Crisp.
He's a crisp looking guy.
Yeah.
Green shirt.
I'll be honest, I was not a big fan of this episode.
Oh no! I really can't stress enough that I watched it twice because I wanted to.
That's fantastic. I'm happy.
Listen, I don't disbelieve you.
No, I know. I want to make it clear that I am a lover of this show.
You're allowed.
You're a lover of the show. I'm a fighter.
Yeah.
I liked the white stripes, the Jack White dress up. I thought that was funny. I don't know. I most of the stuff I liked ironically, so I can't contribute much,
I will say something that Sorkin, in the sphere of comedy writing, something that Sorkin is actually really good at writing is people's bad ideas for what's funny. He's actually pretty good at doing that on purpose because when I'm not saying that I'm a comedic genius, but when I was in college, I wrote for the satirical newsletter. And when people in my dorm found out about that, they would pitch me ideas, but they were the most standard ideas because people aren't thinking about how to write comedy or do something original ever because it's not what people do. They have other interests and hobbies and talents and stuff. And so when what's the white actor guy's name? Who's
which one, my friend?
The one of the big
one.
three who's supposed to be one of the main characters. He's kind of got a boy face.
Tom.
Sure, Tom.
Tom.
That sounds good. When Tom is hey, we want to do this white stripe sketch where it's they don't know, they forget if they're married or siblings or whatever. It's that's not a good pitch. That's not funny.
No.
Or when they're yeah, Family Feud with the Clintons in the bushes. It's okay, yeah, that's a bad pitch that someone might give.
But that's a very realistic. SNL would easily do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sorkin's pretty good actually at knowing what sketch comedy's bad. And
he has a problem knowing what sketch comedy is good is the issue.
Right.
I did think of one thing that I liked.
Ooh.
Okay, what is it?
So it's as the show is going down and it's going well, Jack Rudolph, who's been, a cartoon villain this whole time, comes out to the balcony and says to Jordan, "You've got spunk, Mary. I like spunk." Or I hate spunk, excuse me. The opposite of what I said. And then he says, "See, I like television," which I just thought was a great line.
That is
See,
charming.
I get it. I'm cool.
That is charming. Yeah, I remembered another thing I liked. When Jordan goes into, what's his name? Jack Rudolph?
Yeah, Jack.
Yeah.
Jack's office or wherever that is. And they're talking about all the sponsors pulling their stuff. There's some actually pretty fun, quick Sorkin-y dialogue in there where she's asking questions. She's oh, where's this magazine from? And then they start to answer. And then she interrupts. She's what's her name? And then they say the name. And she's I hate that name. Anyway, where's she from? That was fun. And then the thing where Jordan always gets people's names wrong is kind of silly. But then she's thanks, Jake. And he's John. And she's thanks, Paul. And he's Peter. That was good too.
I didn't like at first because it feels too much of the Sorkin,
the manic pixie dream girl. We got to find a name for whatever that trope is.
what's the adult version of it? Manic Fae Dream Woman?
Dream lady.
But I liked it at the
tropes. Let me see TV tropes. Go ahead, sorry.
But I liked it at the end, because at the end she was like, sorry, after getting both their names wrong, and that really sold it for me. She was like, I'm trying, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I discovered in looking up this episode that not only is there several active Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip roleplay accounts based on Matt Albee, Danny Tripp, Simon, etc., but the one who does Matt Albee is like definitely some guy in a sketch comedy group, and he tweeted like not even 3 hours ago from us recording from the Matt Albee roleplay account, being like, it's a failed sketch comedy group. This is actually an older tweet, but it's just a picture of a bunch of boys, and I think this is just the guy who made the roleplay account. Who I want to. Can we get these people on the podcast? Should we interview the people who are doing Studio 60 roleplay right now?
My brain is shutting down.
I definitely think so.
I said my brain is shutting down.
Yeah, that's fair. No, it's all good.
Can't handle this right now.
Yeah, well, it's like the Jeff. We always want to say Jeff Newsroom. The Will McAvoy like roleplay stuff still happens. No, Six earlier said Jeff when seriously talking about the Newsroom, and I was like,
I let it go.
We got him. That one goes because it's easy. Like, people are already political pundits on Twitter. Like, that just exists, and you can just do that. But like, what are you accomplishing by being Matt Albee on Twitter? Tell me, you're 22,000 followers.
Read some tweets. Read us a few.
I want to congratulate our entire staff and crew for putting on an extra woke show this week.
Okay, so I guess they're positing that they would want to be woke.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe.
I disagree.
Oh, there's some jokes about Bong Joon-ho around Oscar time. This is mostly just like tweeting about the stuff that's popular. Very excited that my bespoke version of Final Draft has arrived from Italy.
See, that's funny.
That's
comedy.
Funny. Maybe we should all follow Matt Albee60 on Twitter.
Aaron Sorkin, hire this man.
Yeah, please. Joined April 2011. I don't even know what to say. That's just, sorry, that was like a last minute thing that I wanted to drop on y'all and just be like, yo, listen, someone's doing this.
Yeah.
The Simon one is a lot worse. It's just like, I went to Yale.
Sorry, that's me. I'm running that one.
Oh, shit. I knew I found your alt. And anyways, the episode ends with the oft-discussed cold open that they have worked so hard on, where Sarah Paulson's character is in the center. Harriet's like doing the song and has the hands clasped, and they got the orchestra, and it's fine. Magellan showed me this scene out of context like years ago and was like, Alan, we should watch Studio 60
When I first watched the show, it blew my fucking mind.
Yeah.
It blew my fucking mind that Sorkin was like, here's my amazing idea for a cold open. I will say, watching it these two times, each time you watch it, you're more like, yeah, okay, that's an idea.
It's a choice. It's definitely a choice that you made.
Yeah. But I wish he'd just done it, and then we'd seen the rest of the episode or something, instead of the whole episode being like, we're going to come up with this great idea. Here we go.
That's what Six is saying. Like, if you didn't like set it up, then we could have at least like addressed it on its own terms and thought about it as its own like little bit, instead of all this build up to like, all right, that wasn't very funny actually.
Like a more interesting, and I don't know if Studio 60 is going to do this, but there is something in the idea of doing almost a newsroom-esque approach where it's a show about like, okay, this current event happened. Now the sketch comedy writers have to figure out like how they want to tackle it. And that's kind of an idea.
That could be, but I'm sure the show does that though.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see, I guess.
I'm excited by the prospect, but
yeah.
The episode actually ends on a cut back to the 7-day clock now at 6 days, 23 hours and 59 minutes, 59 seconds, which is, I think, actually good. I think that's a good use of that prop, you know?
Yep.
We are counting right back down to the next one. And the three of us are counting down to the next time that we're going to talk about Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip.
Bingo,
I can't wait.
Bingo.
I can wait. I'll call now. Call this podcast an episode, by the way. Wow, we did it. All right, Magellan, tell me, what are we watching next time on Studio 60 on the SunsetChatz?
Next time on Studio 60 on the Sunset Chats, we are watching 2 more episodes of Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Episodes 3 and 4 of the one and only season. The first is episode 3, The Focus Group. A network focus group sends a scare through the company when the results indicate that the rating success of Matt and Danny's first show might have been a one-time thing. And then, episode 4, The West Coast Delay. When they discover that the show has inadvertently plagiarized another comedian's material during a sketch, the team members scramble to break into the taped West Coast feed to correct their error.
Interesting.
I don't know about that. That's also so weird. That's weird that because Studio 60 is being filmed in Los Angeles, it's Saturday Night Live and it's so late at night. It's like, hey, it's 8 o'clock and it's still almost sunny outside. And then they go to bed at a normal time and their show airs. That sucks. Anyway.
We'll be back at some point to talk about that one. I hope people enjoyed this weirdly chaotic first foray into a timeless podcast. Thank you, Six, and thank you, Magellan. Let's do some plugs. Yeah, let's take it to the plug zone.
Let's wrap her on up.
Okay.
If you have questions, comments, or concerns that you would like to email us, you can do so by heading over to chatspod@gmail.com and sending us emails. We also have a Twitter @chatspod that you can follow for updates about the show, and you can support us both with your opinion over on Apple Podcasts by reviewing us there. We like to think we're a 5-star podcast, but that's up to you to decide. And if you'd like to support us financially, we have a Chats Patreon, which is over at patreon.com/chatspod, where we're doing a bunch of bonus content, including Pilot Chats, which is the podcast that we do that helped us get to this situation that we found ourselves in by doing this. So we watch pilots over there. We also do movie commentaries. We also do all sorts of stuff, and people vote on what we do every month. So it's a lot of fun. Patreon.com/chatspod. Six, you're the newest chats friend.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have? You can either plug your own stuff or give us a chat some.
Or both.
Or both, actually, yeah.
So as far as a chatsum, I've been playing Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. It's a fighting game on the PlayStation 4, though it's coming out on PC soonish. I don't know, a couple weeks, I think. If you're like, hey, I like Street Fighter, but fighting games more complicated than that are too much for me, you should play this one because it's more simplified, but it's also better made than Street Fighter. It's really fun.
Remember when Street Fighter was good? I don't.
The Third Strike was good.
Yeah. Oh man, I have not played enough Third Strike. We can alleviate that. Yeah.
And then
interested.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm interested in that game. It sounds good.
And then as far as my plugs, pretty much just Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at JustAFluke. That's JUSTAPFLUKE.
Yes.
Just send all your tweets for me there, and I definitely will get them.
Oh, yay.
Magellan, do you have a chat for this week?
I will say that, Six, you weren't tweeting from that account for the longest time, but you recently have dedicated yourself to doing one tweet a day, even if it's trash. And most of them are garbage, but occasionally they're kind of fun. So,
Malcolm.
Well, thank you. I try.
Malcolm Gladwell said 10,000 tweets, and then you get good at tweeting. So you're on the way.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Malcolm. I hope you come my way.
But don't give me a chat, so I want to go to bed.
Okay, let's see. I got a chat some for you. It's the song "This Kiss." You know that song?
Ooh, I do know that song.
It's criminal.
Yeah. Just listen to it because I was on a riff about it with some other teachers at school today, and then one of them played it, and there's just the part where she goes like, you know? And it's like, there's a lot of good sounds in that tune. Check it out, bop along, and you're going to have a good time.
Sometimes I'm concerned about my friends because they make bad decisions, and then sometimes I just feel like everybody needs a nap. And that's where I'm at with this podcast.
Whoa, wait a minute. Is there... Hold on.
I'm holding.
Is there another kiss?
What?
Okay, there's something called "This Kiss" by Carly Rae Jepsen. I was hoping it was a cover, but I don't think it is.
Who's the singer for the one that you actually are talking about?
The Faith Hill. Is it Faith Hill? Is that who it is? The original. This kiss. I think
it's Faith Hill.
Faith Hill, yeah.
Yeah.
Check that
Climbing
one out.
that big Faithful Hill.
Faithful Hill. Alan, you have a chat?
Yes, sir. Oh,
Okay.
I super do have a chat for this week. Thank you for asking, because
You're welcome.
I have one.
Okay.
Wait, did you want to know what it was, or did you just want to ask me if I had one?
Alan tried to
I don't.
eliminate chatsums because there was one time where he couldn't think of one. Go ahead.
No, I want to recommend people watch a movie. I just saw Tokyo Godfathers for the first time because G-Kids, the company that's putting out a bunch of anime screeners, did a screening of Tokyo Godfathers last week, which again dates this podcast completely. That's a movie from 2003 by Satoshi Kon. It's an anime movie about found family, Christmas miracles, the power of coincidence, and how we need to respect everyone and love even the people who we tend to ignore in society, like the homeless and the queer and etc. I cried a lot. It's really beautiful. If it sounds like I'm short selling it, it's because I don't want to talk too much about the plot. But for real, guys, if you haven't seen Tokyo Godfathers and you're like, I don't watch anime movies, first of all, that's bad. You're bad. Second of all, please find a way to check it out. It really touched me in an emotional way. It's a beautiful film. It's not even necessarily a Christmas movie. I mean, it takes place on Christmas, but it just hits you right where you want to get hit in the heart, you know. Tokyo Godfathers. That's what we got, folks. That's chats for this episode. Thank you to Six. Thank you to Magellan. And thank you, dear listener, for listening to this episode of Studio 60 on the Sunset Chats. Peace.
No, you can't say peace. You can't.
That's mine.
What do they say in
mine.
SNL? What do they say?
They say, good night. See you next week. Good night.
See you next week. Good night. And then everyone hugs for 2 minutes during the credits, and one guy doesn't get a hug.
You should do a prolonged, I want to thank the cast and crew. I want to thank Mark Wahlberg. Yeah.
Thank you to Jesus. Thank you to Mark Wahlberg. Thank you to all the hard work that was done this episode from both Six and Magellan and myself and these microphones.
Thank you to Mark Wahlberg, who must have been funny to save all those people.
Yeah.
Thank you to the entire crew. Just a lot of really, great people working on this project.
And most importantly, thanks to you. And he looks directly into camera and winks.
There's got to be an actual ending, though. We need a sign off. We do need one.
I can't.
Later.
No, you can't just say later. That's not a thing. Laugh. Get it laugh. Get it laugh. Laugh it off.
Oh, I thought you were commanding us to laugh. I'm sorry.
Crack your crack pipe. Go smoke on your crack pipe. Remote.
TV's a crack pipe. Listen to podcasts instead.
Yeah. This show's funny. See you in 7 days.
It's time to reset the clock.
Yeah, it's time to reset that's it. It's time to reset the clock. We got it.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Do you want me to do enough fresh intro? You don't want to keep all of this?
How about see you in a week? The clock starts now. I don't know. Resetting the clock. This all stays in.
It does?
This is because it's sort of like you're watching the episode when they're in the room and they're like, it's got to be something that is self-deprecating. It honors the space, but it kicks ourselves in the balls, right? That's got to be what it is. It's something like that.
Can I just do a fade out on you doing that?
No, because we need a sign off.
I think you should do that.
Okay.
It's got to be good. It's got to be. No, you don't get it. No, it's got to be.
Fine. Then every episode has to...
All right, that's it. You did it.
I'm still talking. I still have my file open. So
all right, John, whatever you put in your file gets to be the ending because I've also...
every episode needs to end with us doing a prolonged bit where we brainstorm what the sign-off is supposed to be. And we promise that we're going to come up with the perfect sign-off that's going to save podcasting. Anyway, goodbye. Good night. See you next week. See you next Friday. studio time. All right. Thank you so much for listening to Sunset Chats episode 1. By the way, the Twitter account that Six mentioned as mine and was pointing people to jokingly no longer exists. That's sort of one of the relics of this podcast being months and months old. Is I am not on Twitter anymore because that website is a nightmare dumpster fire. Anyway, in terms of additional announcements that we didn't know about at the time, I want to tell you the current episodes that are up on the Patreon this month if you're interested in supporting the show financially. So far this month we have released an episode of us just vibing, pilot chats of 2 miniseries, Vanity Fair and The Good Lord Bird. And yesterday we put out a Chats Nights episode where we did some readings, some poems and stories and stuff that you could throw on when you're going to fall asleep, something like that. And then next week we're going to put out a commentary that we just did on Tron Legacy, which is going to be fun. Joining the Patreon now also gets you access to our brand new Discord server where you can join other listeners of the show in discussing the shows that we talk about on the show and discussing really any sort of pop culture stuff you feel like talking about. You can also join fellow listeners over at reddit.com/r/chatspod, where they're currently watching through Freaks and Geeks and listening to our second season, Freaks Chats. And then the other thing that is a benefit for those who want to become patrons is that currently right now we are workshopping a website for the show, which is going to be rolling out in the next couple weeks. And patrons are helping us get some early feedback on that. So it's an exciting time over at the Chats Patreon, and we've got many more ideas in store. We hope you join us there. Oh, and then the last thing is that we have a Medium page for the show, medium.com/chatspot, I believe is how that URL works. We posted some pieces back when we were watching The Prisoner, and we have some plans for some Studio 60 pieces. So if you just can't get enough Studio 60 commentary, there will be more in written form over on medium.com. Anyway, again, thank you so much for listening. I want to thank Lorne Michaels. I want to thank the cast. I want to thank the crew. I want to thank Jim Carrey for being our host tonight. I want to thank Idris Elba. I want to thank the guy from the commercials, the green monster from the Red Sox commercials. I want to thank